本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。
What's good, Internet? It's Friday, March 6th, and you are listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 297. I'm your host, Austin Walker, and I'm joined by Rob Zachney. How you doing, Rob?
Not too bad. Better than a lot of Warren supporters today, unfortunately.
Oh, Jesus,
We're
Rob.
going right into
Yeah,
it.
wow.
Patrick Klepek, how are you doing?
Does that start the clock? I don't know.
No, we don't deserve. No, say we need that. We need all 10 minutes. For a 10 minutes pause. Patrick Klepek, you're here.
I am here. I'm here. Will E3 be here in a couple weeks? Who knows?
We'll see. Kato in the booth. Nothing? You just got to laugh for me?
I saw, oh wait, you retweeted this. Tulsi Gabbard surges to
Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard surges to third. What?
Not wrong.
Oh.
God.
I honestly forgot she existed until that one delegate popped up. I was like, oh, hey.
Yeah, you know,
She's still here.
she's still here. She's still here. How's everyone doing? Do you want to just put 10 on the clock right away? You want to just jump into it?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
we
let's
need-
just
Do we
do it.
have
Let's
thought-
just
okay.
move on with our lives.
Let's just get it going. We'll see what we can fit into 10.
go.
Okay, we're live.
We're
Hey, since last time we recorded, what are the big things that have happened? While we were recording last time, the Biden endorsements came in from Pete and Amy.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
I don't know why this
Centrist Voltron.
quote unquote centrist Voltron, which seemed to have great effect.
Beto doesn't... Beto?
Beto
Doesn't count?
Beto doesn't count.
Beto?
Beto,
No, he
listen,
does not count.
Beto.
No. After getting exiled from the world of music, I think at this point now.
Yeah, go look up Mars Volta Beto, and
Did you not
we
know
need to
this
get in here 'cause
history? Did you not
I didn't
know?
know. Did not know.
That
I knew he was in a
Cedric
band. I did not know
Mixler-Zavala-
that he was related to...
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
One of my greatest moments as a child was I didn't get to see At the Drive-In, the band before Mars Volta, because they broke up, but I saw the Mars Volta, and I was confused several times for Cedric at the venue because I had very large curly hair in the way that he does.
That's very funny. That's very funny.
Yeah.
I was always more of an At the Drive-In guy, but that's fine. Anyway.
Well, I like the first two albums of Mars Volta.
Yeah, me too. Anyway.
Those first two are
We
good.
can't. This is our 10-minute politics minute. We have to use it.
Super Tuesday. Super Tuesday happens.
Biden
And
goes big, which
Joe
Joe crushes the South.
But not just big. Like,
Well, we don't
he
know. Well,
crushes the-
it's the thing is, it's like there are different degrees of big, right? Because there's the big that MSNBC wanted you to believe it was going to be within the first hour, and then there is the big that it actually is, which is still big. But as the numbers from California continue to come in, as that lead continues to close, as the numbers from a couple other places even start to even out a little bit more, and as you start to look at some of the stats, it's still a very tight race. But it was a big night for Joe Biden that confirmed a lot of the kind of common sense, common wisdom that you had about his appeal to especially older black voters, but to the black base in the South in general.
but can we make that distinction? Because I think there's been a tendency to use as a sort of cudgel that like, oh, well, when the way Bernie talks about his support, it's like, well, what, you're just dismissing all black voters? And it's like, no, like if you actually dig into the numbers, like there is interesting splits generationally.
The
Yes,
like
it is
45 and
overwhelmingly
under
true.
is like, he's very competitive there, and unsurprisingly.
And geographically as well.
Yes, totally.
Like black voters are not a national monolith. Like
Right.
it matters where in the country you are. So there's also regional voting patterns.
Right, and you cannot oversell the effect of a Jim Clyburn endorsement, and Jim Clyburn was never going to endorse Bernie Sanders. Their policy differences
Bernie
are...
said that. Did you see the quote today
I
from
did see
him
that,
where he was just
yeah.
like, they're like,
Come on.
you know, because there's been this critique of like, oh well, why didn't Bernie make more outreach to sort of establishment figures? Like, come on, like that was ever gonna really pan out. They were gonna have to come kicking and screaming if it was ever gonna happen.
They'll work
but
with
even
the guy.
Bernie was like,
He's worked
why?
with Clyburn
Why
and
would I
stuff.
buy? He's like, I like Clyburn. He's a good person. We have collaborations, but. Like let's be serious. Like he was not going to endorse me. We're pretty far apart on policy,
Yes.
which is like
which
it's
is true.
Why would he waste his time?
And it's true for a segment of like when I think about the older members of my family, like they are fairly conservative. They vote Democrat, right? But they vote Democrat almost by necessity because for their for
there isn't another party,
right? Exactly, and they're going to support the members of the party that line up with their. A lot of Black conservatism is in some ways a mixture of cynicism, earned cynicism, safety mechanism, a desire for stability, which is all understandable for folks who grew up in, under the shadow of Jim Crow, who grew up under the shadow of a struggling civil rights movement, and who grew up to see like even the leaders of even people who supported the civil rights movement in name would often go on to support policies that did not actually help, defend us from the ways in which capitalism in the 1980s, 90s, and through today continues to prey upon Black folks. And I think there's a degree of just like familiarity, feel safer. Bernie, there are different types of white folks. Bernie is not a particularly familiar type of white folk. Biden is very much the devil you know. Like, you know that motherfucker is going to vote for some shit you don't like. Guess what? So is everybody else. And with this one, I know who it is. And so I get where that comes from because I know it intimately.
Well, and it also feels to me like there's an element of, in the Congressional Black Caucus, what you have is also a lot of politicians who you might consider like machine
politicians. Exactly this
as well.
Yes.
Again, we live in a deeply structurally racist country, and where the Democratic Party tends to elevate and elect Black politicians really heavily is also very self-interestedly.
Yes. Where can we bring someone in who's going to maintain the continuity of our strength and not challenge it? Who's going to extend our reach and not offer their own? And that is very much, I think, what we've seen historically there. And if you're from a place like that, if you are a Black person who has ambition and who wants to represent your community, you have a choice to make. Do you work with that machine or do you not? And a lot of folks have decided to work with that machine, which I get. Even
go listen the Waypoints we did like a year and a half ago on The City, the podcast series by USA Today, digs in deep to like the compromises that Black politicians often have to make to accrue some semblance of power and become part of the machine.
Autonomy. Yeah, definitely.
But that also does mean they begin moving into the elements of Democratic Party politics and policy that do begin to favor more centrist positions and do begin to represent the interests of corporations and finance as much as they do, if not more so, vulnerable members of their own community. Like this is complicated political terrain.
Also, frankly, a lot of them just disagree on ideology. They just do. Like I think it's important to talk about the senior Black members of the Democratic Party and especially older Black voters as agents unto themselves because they're human beings. They are not a monolith. They are not something that's being like led by a leash. It's gross when I see even especially leftists, fall into the trap of talking about that voting bloc as somehow not a collective group of people who are still making decisions. They just disagree. They are more conservative writ large. Regardless, this is a big part of why Biden had such a big night, and I think for a lot of folks it was deeply demoralizing. A lot of people in the Bernie camp, a lot of people in the Warren camp too, obviously. And I guess there were some people in the Bloomberg camp, technically. Shout outs to America Samoa, because Bloomberg got
8 full-time on-the-ground employees working American Samoa.
Amazing.
I think someone saw it worked out to like.
It was a very efficient.
$250 a vote or something.
Yeah, my understanding is it's just in terms of delegate count, it was more efficient than any other delegates on the table. Anyway, I think for a lot of folks who came into this with Bernie surging up until the day before, coming off of the huge Nevada win, even with the kind of slowdown of South Carolina. Am I right on that? South Carolina was the one before, in between Nevada. And, okay. I think people wanted to see the haymaker knockout blow, and that was not what we got for sure.
Well, part of it is the thing that was really kind of unfortunate here for Bernie is that none of the centrist candidates got any traction except for Biden, really. And so we came into this like we came into this at a moment where Buttigieg needed to show something in South Carolina. He needed to have some vindication that he could connect with conservative Democrats and Black Democrats. And he really came through with neither. And at that point, it was pretty clear to both him and Klobuchar that like these campaigns were not going to end in a presidency, at which point they literally had their moment of like greatest influence. Like, you know, these are people with career ambitions and are looking forward to a long future in Democratic politics. And unfortunately, there was no longer a path forward for them. And the scary thing that as a block, Bernie voters had demolished these disparate centrists in the previous two contests in some ways. But once those blocks consolidated and, you know, I think, is it official? Like, is it now known that like Obama's putting in like phone calls to Buttigieg to like help get this deal done?
There was a conversation. There was my understanding is there was a conversation, but that conversation did not necessarily include. It was more of a, hey, you got to weigh your choices, bud, and less of a, here is the choice I would weigh if I were you. I think there was some stuff going around on Twitter that made it seem as if there was a little more pressure on the scale than there actually was. But I still think getting that call from Obama in that moment is the sort of soft pressure that
time to
Obama,
hang it up.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And once those blocks consolidated, you know, that was going to like, we were always going to get here, probably, unless like Klobuchar and Buttigieg had kept moving.
Bonus 5 minutes.
We need 10.
Bonus 10
we
minutes?
need 10.
Okay.
We got to do a 20-minute, 10-minute podcast minute.
20-minute, 10-minute politics minute.
Yeah, I said podcast politics minute. Yeah. Go ahead, continue, Rob. I'm sorry, our alarm went off.
Yeah, no, I mean, so it's like strategically the entire thing made perfect sense, and it is deeply frustrating to see the Democratic Party begin to mobilize to fight off Bernie and its younger voters, but at the same time, like from the standpoint of where all the campaigns were at, what happened was kind of inevitable.
Yeah,
right. Like if like it didn't
in some
require
ways,
a great
it was
deal of
better for it to
coordination.
happen earlier rather than later. Like if we're gonna have the fucking fight,
let's have the fight.
Then have it now.
Well, they're two different questions.
It could have happened right after Super Tuesday. Like Wednesday would have been a great moment for.
Yes. The thing that bums me out the most about this, and also just to be clear, we are adding 10 more minutes, just to 100% be clear.
Yeah.
The thing that bums me out the most is that we're not going to get a debate between now and the next round of primaries on Tuesday.
When is the next debate?
The 15th, I want to say, but I could be off by that. It's between, I think, the next round and then. Am I off?
I just want to say, no.
Oh.
I Googled for next debate. First headline I saw, DNC says debate threshold will go up after Gabbard clears previous mark.
Of course. You're out. Tulsi, no. Tulsi, go home.
It's Tom Perez can't really figure out a rule system to make any of this make sense, but here we'll just start Calvin balling it.
Let's just fuck it, man. If we're gonna make it up as we go along, we're gonna make it up. The
March 15th.
March 15th is right. So yeah, I would have definitely preferred that to happen before a debate to happen before the next round of primaries, because to Patrick's point, what we're going to get now and what Sanders has basically said he's wanted for a minute now is like head to head. Let's have the conversation. Let's have the policy debate. I don't think it's a mistake that Jim Clyburn has said that Biden needs to focus less on policy in his campaigning, which is ironic since policy has not been a what do you call it? A load-bearing structure of his campaign. That has not been one of his foregrounded elements. He's mostly been about feeling, mostly been about safety, security, knowing Obama. He obviously has some policy stuff that he's put out there, but that is not. He is not Elizabeth Warren. He's not Bernie Sanders. Honestly, he's much more like a Pete Buttigieg, which is about appealing to feeling and kind of sense of security and whatever. And that is that is the debate is the location in which Bernie can force that conversation to be about policy, or hopefully moderators will, though who the fuck knows at this point. And on a policy conversation, I think Biden looks pretty bad, but we'll see.
It'll be curious to see because the next round of votes are March 10th,
and that includes
Idaho,
Michigan,
Mississippi, Missouri, North Dakota, Washington. Which really Michigan is the prize. You know, Bernie pulled off a big upset last time, and if he can't hold, I think he still has the lead there. And if he loses Michigan, that puts everything in a, look, regardless, he'll be able to drag it out as long as he wants because he will be quote unquote competitive in the same way that he was in 2016. But in terms of like credibly being able to, get a plurality, like that's going to be tough if he loses.
And he has said he would support Biden if Biden goes into the election with a plurality.
Sure, he did it last time. 100%. He's going to do it this time too.
And I don't even mean support him in the general. I mean he wouldn't try to contest the election even if neither of them ends up with a majority. Just to zoom out for a second and talk a little bit about like what this I want to go back to the night of Super Tuesday as people like feel bad online because you want that knockout blow and instead you get the kind of pushback. You see the kind of comeback for Biden happen. You see a lot of Democrat Party senior members coalesce around him, support him. You see the kind of centrist wing of the party, which is very large and very influential. So much so that we often just reduce it down to the establishment. And this is what we mean when we say the establishment. We don't necessarily mean the administration. We mean the party leaders, and you should know what that means at this point. I think that it was really disheartening. And I think it was partially disheartening for a lot of us. I can speak for myself here, which is for 15 years, it's like my entire adult life, I've been like the idiosyncratic leftist in the group, right? For my years in college, for my years post-college, especially as I was getting into grad school. Like when I'm hanging out and playing Magic cards with people, I'm the one who is the socialist. And I think that's true for a lot of people. That is not necessarily, socialism has not been popular in this country for a long time. And in some ways that you definitely ended up having that Adam Sandler moment of like, this is how I win. Look at this. Holy shit. Like we're things are coming together our way, and you want that knockout blow because you're so fucking tired. You're just exhausted, and you want to like prove that the history is moving in a new direction. And when you don't get that, it can feel like, oh fuck, it was all for nothing. It's all over. Biden's going to like cream us and everyone's coming against us. Look at how hard it is. And my answer to that is like, it ain't never been easy. Like you can't be here for just the presidential election if these are your politics. In fact, part of why I support Bernie
just winning.
Right. That's the thing. The reason
there's winning and like Scott Benson had these two great tweets that I think put a little bit of this in perspective. Follow Scott Benson.
Bombs fall.
Good fall.
Yeah.
Or good follow. Also, if you want to see watch a house get rebuilt.
His renovation thread is great.
Year. And so he wrote this on Super Tuesday as he was dealing with electricians and not watching politics. But his two tweets: what has happened is unthinkable. Like no false positivity here. This is something I would have laughed at the suggestion of 10 years ago. As part of the largest swath of the left, we're in a place we've rarely been in U.S. history, a half century since at least. Own it and be proud. If you think a socialist coming in right behind the entire institutional might of liberal capital in the U.S. is a big defeat, then you might want to take a look at the past every election.
Yes.
This is huge, which is like not to, and this is, he's done. Like, yeah, I think echoing to your point of like, it is not that you can't be upset and angry
100%,
and
but carry that energy,
feel beaten by what has happened.
Yes. Carry that same energy because that's the energy that brought us here to begin with, and that you'll need even if we win. Like, this is not something that wins at a presidency. The entire reason I support Bernie Sanders, the entire reason I'm a leftist is because I understand that change happens on a continuous scale. It doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't happen with the Hail Mary pass and then you win the touchdown and you win the game. There's always another season. There's always another fight to have, often against the people you elect, often against the people you root for. You know, it is not for nothing that it has become a kind of
see
common
Obama
thing. Yeah, exactly. I vote for my best enemy, right? Like that is the thing you do. You put into power the person you trust the most, but also the person who you think you can hold accountable and fight against and mold over the future. And so if you're in it, you're in it. I guess the last thing we should hit with how much time do we have left? Like a minute?
Yeah.
Warren thoughts as Warren drops out today?
Yeah, we're not squeezing that into a minute.
Give me some.
No, I mean, I think it is where things ended up with Warren is really complicated. And I think the flop of her campaign is probably one of the most disappointing parts of this cycle for me. I think because it does demonstrate how really little appetite there is, even in the center left, for actual like left-leaning policy, right? Like what Warren was holding out in a lot of ways was we need to strengthen and sort of rebuild a lot of our regulatory apparatus that's been destroyed since the Reagan years. And that is something that a lot of people, I think, who would consider themselves doctrinaire Democrats probably believe. That is probably something that at some point they have supported through their votes, right? These are things that even, you know, someone like Barney Frank, who was generally very pro-finance throughout his career, tended to support. And Warren was somebody who was offering a more left-leaning version of that and appeared to be really set to take the fight to the banks. And that just got nowhere. Like the position sort of being halfway between Bernie and the sort of the center of the Democratic coalition appears to have no one there, or at least it appears to have sort of no natural affinity for Democratic voters. And that's the thing that has been really disappointing, is that what seems to have happened is that a lot of the people who would have been Warren supporters reached the conclusion at some point that Bernie was probably a better total package, right? That was certainly me. You know, Warren, when she spoke about, like, you know, I talked a little bit about this on Twitter. When Warren talked about foreign policy, she didn't seem particularly interested, and she tended to still like mouth the bromides that we've been hearing for the last 20 years of forever war. Right. And there's simply like, we cannot afford to continue operating that way. We can't afford to continue ceding the ground to people who are always, you know, beating the drum for the next intervention being the good one. And my fear was that with Warren's sort of caution on that front, she would cede that policy ground. And so that was one of the things that put me over in the Bernie camp. What concerns me is that she didn't seem to grab, she lost voters to her left, but she didn't seem to grab any from the center left. And that has been really demoralizing to see.
Yeah, definitely. We're out of our 20 minutes, but yeah, we'll see. You know, Warren has dropped out. I think her statement to her staff just hit. No endorsement as of 11:40 a.m. We'll see. And
just, I think Sanders supporters, like, if you've been out there, you know, opining about Warren a great deal and what you think of her, maybe sit out the outreach part of the program to Warren voters.
Focus on catharsis isn't politics. Sometimes catharsis is necessary, and also,
but also, like, you can't be like it. A lot of people have been out online for a while with their thoughts on the Warren campaign and their thoughts on her. You can't come to Wednesday morning and be like, Warren supporters, you know, I love you guys. We'll welcome you with open arms. Maybe not the right messenger for that would be my thought. Maybe leave that for maybe leave Warren voters to sort of figure this out for themselves.
I mean, I think there's a place. I do think that there's a place for this. Like when John Drake on Twitter is like, "Hey, I guess I'm coming into Bernie." I think you can be like, "Hey, we're here for you." But I think there's a place.
But that starts with John Drake coming to that conclusion, right?
Yeah,
that
totally. But
that doesn't start with me like Monday being like, Warren needs to drop the fuck out.
Right. Well, like,
if you want to yell at Chuck Wendig and see if you can get yourself blocked, like, absolutely,
go for it.
Like, go for it and just see what happens.
I don't personally know a woman who is not outraged by the Chuck Wendig Warren is my mom stuff. I don't, like, in my life, I don't know one. Every woman I talked to brought it up to me as being like, fuck this guy specifically. Anyway.
It's good.
When allyship goes wrong.
It's tough.
Man, I'm a huge supporter of women. My mom was a woman.
God. All right. We should have a podcast about video games also, because we played some.
All right.
Where do we want to start? Did you play that? Did anyone here play that Final Fantasy demo?
Yeah.
It did.
You did.
I played it last
what
night.
do y'all think? We should
I've
let's take a
replayed the
break.
demo. I
Let's
played
take
it.
a break. That was long enough that we could take a fucking break, and then we'll come back and talk about podcasts or video games. Talk about podcasts. I'm starting a new podcast just about podcasts. All right, BRB. Final Fantasy VII remake demo conversation and thoughts. Let's go.
Final Fantasy demo, the E3 demo that has been put on PSN for other people to play, which is I played this demo like a year ago, as it turns out.
Same one?
Yeah, the demo that is. Yeah, it's the only thing that's not in this demo from what I played at E3 last year. I mean, certainly it's like probably a newer build, cleaner, yada, yada, yada. But the only thing that was not in what I played last year was the like brief escape sequence when you've set the bomb. At that point, after you fight the boss, it just like, cuts to credits so they could rotate the next group of people.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a short 30 to 60 minute demo, kind of depending on how like quickly you wrap yourself around the combat and deal with some of the longer fight sequences of Final Fantasy VII's remake, which was supposed to come out at the beginning of March and is now coming out at the beginning of April. And yeah, I have seen a lot of. It's been fascinating to watch people like actually reckon with the reality of a Final Fantasy VII remake as opposed to the fantasy of because even now with trailers and screenshots and interviews, it's still different to sit down and encounter it yourself. And I don't remember if we talked about this because Kaito, you were producing at E3 and not talking as much. But like, what is your own history with? Because I think everyone has like a Final Fantasy,
right?
And 7 is certainly up there for me as like the ones that are like really important, and I can get into that. But I'm curious where it falls for you.
I feel like I've told this story before, but 7 is one that I never got to finish due to a scratched disc. That I borrowed it. I borrowed the PC
The second
version.
or the third disc? Oh, right. You did tell this story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, you have told this story.
The PC version was over like 5 discs or some shit.
You know what's so I was reading I might be doing some interviews with some folks working on the remake for a feature, and so I was reading the Wikipedia on Final Fantasy VII just to try and brainstorm ideas, and one of the things that I noticed was there's a section about the PC version because Square, when they made the decision to partner with Sony over Nintendo for Final Fantasy VII, they signed, this not even really an exclusivity. I mean, they did sign exclusivity, but to make it so it couldn't go on the Saturn, but like it couldn't logistically even appear on the N64 because of the cartridges.
Right.
But so their deal didn't cover the PC, and so Square, established like a U.S. studio to program the PC version, which eventually was published by Eidos Interactive before they got acquired by Square. And the code was so mangled that they basically had to reprogram basically the entire game in order to make it function on the PC, and the source code for the PC version then became the base code used for every port since. So like when you play the game like on your Vita or your Switch, the legacy of that code, it's Wikipedia, so maybe that's not 100% truth, but it seems that the legacy of that kind of mangled PC version, which was fine for the time, is that it allowed all the other versions to later exist, which is kind of
That's very
like
funny.
a interesting fact.
Yeah, totally. So wait, tell me about the demo. What y'all thought about it? Are you excited now for the full release?
Yeah, I really enjoyed. So I played through 15, and
You beat 15.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The only 2 Final Fantasies that I've ever beaten, 10 and 15.
Okay.
Weird ones.
There's a
10's
lot of
great.
them. I can imagine. Yeah.
10 is super
I love
good.
10. 10 would be
Yes.
my like Final Fantasy because I just haven't. The other ones that I've played are 12, and I touched like 3 once, but like
the
it
DS
was I was
remake or whatever.
borrowing it from a friend and had to give it back.
Yeah,
and
you
it's
should
so
go back
far.
and play that. Like if you ever get it, like if they, I don't think it's on Switch, but if they ever did like a even just like on the Nintendo Online or
Yeah.
what, you know, the stuff, like if they put out like Final Fantasy 6 is like
Sorry,
7
you said
is,
3. You mean 3 or do you mean
6 slash 3.
I'm asking what Kato
You mean
played.
It was.
he's got to mean that.
Yeah, right. That's
Okay.
how that worked.
Yes, but
Final Fantasy
3
3
is a-
on the Super Nintendo is Final Fantasy 6
Yes.
technically, but it was the third one
Yes,
released in the
yeah,
US.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
I didn't know if you meant the 3D remake, but did that actually come out, or am I
Did
imagining
they do
that?
a proper 3D remake?
Or am I thinking of
no, I don't think they did that.
You're right. They only did that for 4 and 5, right?
Yeah, 6 because
okay.
6 I think is kind of Square's kept in their back pocket.
No,
Like,
I didn't mean 6.
if
I meant
you-
real 3. I was trying to figure
Yeah,
out if
yeah,
Kato
yeah.
somehow had played. But anyway.
I don't think no. That
I guess I was just saying that I think they've kept 6/3 in their back pocket of like if you were ever going like essentially you could if you did a quote remake of 6/3 it would basically be a new game to huge audiences, and I
Right,
keep hoping
right.
that at some point they'll just say they'll get desperate and be like, you know what, it's harder to make a new one. We'll just go make 6/3 because you know what, Kefka's a
We just
cool
have to
ass
call it
villain.
6. We have to call it 6 because 3 is available now. 3 was remade on the DS.
Right.
It's available on
Okay,
Steam.
all right. Okay.
Anyway,
Oh,
the one with the train.
the one with
That's
the
what we
clown?
mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
the one with the clown and the train.
You can suplex a train.
We live in a society.
Final
Good,
Fantasy.
great.
Yeah.
fuck.
Kefka
My favorite
dances
scene
down
from
those
Joker
stairs.
when he suplexes the train.
Yeah, exactly.
That's who Joaquin Phoenix got that. Whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, so you played 15.
Right. And so like this has like a kind of similar combat setup, but something about the cadence of this one to me felt better just because it's like an action RPG, I guess. But there's
It's got turn-based elements. 15, you can't pause, right?
right.
This one you can truly.
Even when you
I
go in
can't remember.
menus, I remember
It does slow motion or something, doesn't it? Does it not?
does it
Maybe
slow
doesn't.
down?
Maybe
I
you're
don't
right.
think so. Maybe I'm misremembering, but like to
I'm
me, I
gonna go-
remember
all right,
doing
you talk-
a lot
you-
of like frantic menuing while also
Are you not
moving
thinking
around,
of Kingdom
maybe.
Hearts?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, that's the thing, though.
Yeah.
That's the thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like that's where kind of this type of combat where there's like a menu and you're doing action stuff kind of originated,
Yeah.
right? Like as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that this one feels, because there's like different options for the like regular attacks in a way that aren't quite, they're nowhere near the sort of like combo nest that you can get with like an actual like character action game, but they're like one extra step of like there's a little bit of wiggle room here where there's like the one combo that you can do basically, and then there's like a secondary like wide attack.
You mean hit square or hold
or
square?
hold square. Yeah, but you can do that. You can string those two together in a way
Yeah.
where basically what those are like focused attack and wide attack, right? Like area attack. But and you know, it's just like one of those things where they let you string them together well enough that combat isn't always mashing square the way that Kingdom Hearts can get, you know.
Well, you can do both, right? Like I
Right.
think it better runs the like at least in the hour I've this demo I've played twice now. Whereas with the Kingdom Hearts I found myself quickly defaulting to just mashing because it's like
Right.
it's fine, like whatever. Whereas like in Final Fantasy,
It's mash and then you AoE like spells is for area effect, and like in this one it lets you have both of those things before you hit spells because spells are locked behind you filling a meter anyways. So it's just like
Well, also
giving you-
it's also like instead of like in Kingdom Hearts where every ability is sort of centralized on the main character,
Yeah.
they're distributed amongst other characters. It's like, I mean, it's really like all one character, but like they're just distributing it among different characters so that you're forced to kind of like swap around between them. Although I'll be curious if you felt this way, Kato. Barrett, not fun to play as at all. And most is just like, all right, go do your thing, Barrett. And then I'm going to swap back to Cloud so I can go do swingy. Like it was like more,
Yeah.
I found his sword combat and his abilities to be, and the fact that you can switch between a offensive and defensive stance, like basically like a heavy and a light stance.
Yeah.
Although like the heavy stance, when you block, he does an automatic. Like there's just more variety to Cloud's combat in this like opening sequence. Maybe Barrett gets more interesting as you go along. Maybe if
Later.
you have
That's what I wonder
more
how those
characters.
abilities, like if you're gathering more abilities later, or how that whole system works. Because
Is
I don't
there
remember anything.
Materia
about...
just straight up in the game again? Or
I think so. Do you see a materia? That's how you get
you're
spells,
not
right?
slotting materia.
I think not in the
this
not in the
demo.
demo, at least. I didn't see
I don't
the
know how the
menu
actual
option for
system
it.
works.
Yeah, that's the
This is
thing
my
about,
biggest question about this game, right?
Right.
Because I am someone who loved Final Fantasy VII when it came out, and then when I tried to go back to it, I didn't like it at all. I liked the elements of the story. I got through Midgar the last time I played through, but I did not get much further than that. And the big reason for that for me was while when it first came out, what I loved was I can basically break this game with materia. By the end of that game, what is a fight? You know what I mean? You have enough combos and enough weird builds where you're just basically the characters are basically their limit breaks plus the materia you've put on them. You're not doing attacks. You're not their weapons have some effects and they look cool, and you have a favorite character because they have story bits, but you don't necessarily the characters don't feel mechanically distinct from each other because they're not really beyond limit breaks and weapons. And by the end of that game, these materia are so powerful that shit doesn't matter. So I'm most curious about this is will Barret, Tifa, and Cloud feel like distinct characters as you level them up, as you get more and more materia, if that system's even in the game the way it was. And if it isn't, that's a pretty big move mechanically away from what that game is. And I think a lot of people are going to be really focused and interested in how this game differs from the original Final Fantasy VII.
Well, and I'm just curious if I wonder if the demo is illustrative of how that expansion will happen, in which, yes, you have other characters, but primarily they expect you to play as Cloud.
Yeah.
And so that you are essentially playing as, you could play as, there's nothing, mechanically stopping you from switching to Barret and just playing as him, and then, letting Cloud do his thing and giving, telling him what moves to do and giving, having him cast spells. But really, the mechanical depth, again, only in this first hour is otherwise, Barret is it's a lot of charge attacks and then waiting for that stuff to charge up again, or holding down square to spam a Gatling gun. And again, maybe that stuff changes over time, but if I had to guess right now, it's going to be a bunch of support characters that are mildly interesting, but that you don't want to interact with for more than 30 seconds before you go back to Cloud and he becomes sort of the thrust that drives all of the action.
I saw someone saying that there was to get the most out of the combat, you did require to switch over between characters so that you could stagger enemies and stuff like that. But y'all didn't feel like that.
No.
But that's a short thing.
No, you do. You definitely do.
Yeah, and it's just because Barret's abilities so far are big, they're very what's the word I was looking for? He's not a glass cannon. The other one, it's burst damage, right?
Okay.
It's all at once, and then you switch back, right?
Gotcha.
But I've noticed the AI doesn't attack as frequently as a human does. It'll stop and take rest and move around. So if you need to be attacking something at range, you absolutely need to just be on Barret and holding his minigun.
Gotcha.
But it definitely feels this is a small break in the combat flow from you being Cloud, rather than these are mechanical differences that I'm making. I'm making choices here to be Barret for something strategic. It's more there's a break because the enemy got too far.
Right.
I'm gonna be Barret for a bit, and that's cool. He's got a big gun. Gonna do some spells. But yeah, mostly it does feel very much built like Cloud is your character and you're switching away. And I feel that I wonder, given other characters more melee focused stuff, because the combo stuff and the stance stuff with Cloud feels pretty good, whether or not similar things will be in those other characters, and they just didn't figure something out with Barret,
I think the most mechanically interesting characters just don't have the possibility to be in this first part of the remake because you don't meet them in Midgar. When I think about enemies, or characters that use guns, or was it Yuffie?
Yeah.
She seems like she could be a really fun, super fast, constantly switching stances sort of character. But she's someone you don't. I forget the exact time.
Do you think that they'll break it up so that you get 3 characters in part 2 and then another set in part 3? Because who's left? Vincent, Ketchi, Yuffie, Kate Sith, yeah, Ketchi, but Kate Sith, which is what we all called them in when I was a
wondering
child.
what you were saying.
Yeah. What else? Who else? Vincent, Yuffie, Sid. Maybe that's it. Is that? Red 13 is in this game. My
Right.
understanding is not playable, as they've come out and said.
Huh.
Not in this one,
Yes.
but that will
Yeah, of course.
Next one.
be playable.
Yeah. I think that's the crew. I think that's the squad.
So what does that split look like then? Is this just going to be 2 things or
no, it has to be 3. There's
3?
No,
Yeah.
They've said,
Have they said 3, or do we just think 3?
I think they've said not 2, and they just haven't said
Oh, don't do
what
4.
would be beyond that.
Y'all better not. Y'all better not. I am like of so many minds. Also, by the way, I looked it up, and obviously no one knows in the final release, but they released a screenshot on their official page late last year that says materia will help you win fights in Final Fantasy VII Remake. Here's where here we're equipping the elemental materia, which adds elemental damage to Cloud's weapon. Certain materia allow your characters to use magic, and different materia can even be linked together. And they show like the materia screen, and this is just like straight up lightning materia that just goes into Cloud's Buster Sword, and that just does, or ice materia, and that just does ice damage instead of it being a thing where you're like, that means that Cloud can cast Ice 1 or whatever, you know.
I wonder if that's
what the fuck is the
Does it mean both?
well, it looks
he
like
can-
because he
like-
can, he can cast fire.
my suspicion is there will be different specific
Right.
materia for casting,
right.
and then and then
that
different
makes
for
sense.
and my guess is that they're going to move away from just cast, which is like what that game was.
Right. No, yeah, they already have.
Well, also
it's
because
locked- it's
yeah.
locked behind the ATB system, right?
Right.
So you're building up a meter.
Yeah, I mean
that
that's how it was.
But you could no, but like that was just your turn,
Right.
right? This is you're doing attacks in order
I
to fill
see,
that
I
meter
see, I
up,
see.
and then once that
I
meter
got
gets
you.
filled up, that's when you can cast
So
spells.
it's not an ATB system. It's
No, that's just
it's
the thing. That's what the name
it's
is.
a super meter.
Yeah, basically.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's a 2. At least in the demo, each character has two sections of
I see
meter,
it.
and each of those will let you use an ability or cast a spell. Spells also take up MP, so like you
Yeah.
can't just, even if you're quickly refilling that ATB, you will.
Listen,
not
there
be
were
able to
ways
spam
around
it.
it. There were ways around it in the back in the day. You don't worry about that MP. I
But
got you.
But so yeah, they've
Cool.
got it. It was I really enjoyed the kind of flow of it, of like keeping an eye on how much ATB I have, so that I can, you know, that is a pause when you go into that command screen,
Yeah.
which is good. And I don't know, I really enjoyed just like the differences. I know, and like again, like this is not a combo based game, but like the small differences that you could do even were appreciated, given that it's already just kind of like they've extrapolated.
You have to build off each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Right,
There's a combo
totally.
system in the sense that like one of the first mini bosses you come across is like, you know, one of the characters conveniently shouts. Or Barrett is usually the one giving you when he's not saying "suck it" and being a stereotype, like in the Mr. Tiification of Final Fantasy of Barrett is alive and well, because 30 seconds into the first fight, suck it. It's they have done zero. At least there's no indication here that there is going to be any attempt to revisit that character's like very 90s black stereotyping to try and so it's, I mean, it is what it is, I guess, but it's like, man, that's a big asterisk that like it is what it is, and it's frustrating. But you know, he points out that, oh, this character is going to be, you know, weak to lightning, and so yeah, you'll have like at least in this sequence, and I don't know how it'll play out when you have access to more magic, and like if some will be exclusive to certain characters, if, you know, in like a lot of Final Fantasies where it's like, well, it starts out everyone is kind of whatever, but you can get everything by the end, and everyone kind of is not specifically a class necessarily. But he's the only one that has lightning in the demo, so you can cast lightning, which like can set up a stagger, and then Cloud has a certain ability that like it specializes in staggering. So you combine those two, and then maybe you switch over to Barrett again. And the nice thing is, like, you can switch between them on the D-pad to assume control, but then L2 and R2 pull up a menu that allows you to issue a command to them. So you can do it from a distance without giving up control, or you can swap over and like control them in the arena.
Yeah.
And then like maybe you'll set up like a big shotgun blast from from Barrett. Well, then you switch back over to Cloud and you switch him to his heavy stance so that he's doing these really big swings. And so you get a picture into, well, that's just 2 characters in the first hour of the game. If I think they're saying, like, right, it's 3 characters are going to be limited to like a team. I think is what I want to say that's what the remake is going to be.
+2. Cloud +2.
Right.
And you can't pull
and that
Cloud
would be,
out, I'm guessing. I would not in the demo, obviously.
Not. I also want to say that was maybe the case in Final Fantasy VII because like whenever you were running around, I think you always had Cloud as the political.
There are definitely moments when there's
the
other people
character
in that party that take the lead, but yeah.
But in that first hour, like the amount of options you have can feel at times overwhelming. I'm sure that's partly just due to like, I think it does a kind of poor job at introducing the systems to you and getting you comfortable with them in the demo, and that you would just sort of, I just mean like the arc from like, here's a bunch of systems that are happening in real time, figure it out, to you're at a boss, make sure you manage them properly because it's not hard to die.
Yeah.
I managed to not to because I'd fought the boss before, so I knew the flow of it, but I would not be shocked if other people got their ass kicked a little bit. And if you throw in a third character and like you have a bunch of other abilities, I could see how it would be. There's going to be a lot to manage at once in any given combat sequence.
Yeah. I had a lot of trouble the first time. I actually played it twice also just like because I could see and like only was just wrapping my mind around the way that those different abilities kind of interlock the first time around. But the second time around, having that kind of knowledge is like really it was really fun to kind of do those things on the fly, like set up a spell and then a stagger combo into it with Cloud. And yeah, it basically like it. I was like on the fence about whether or not like this would feel good enough to go through, given some of the asterisks around people like Barrett and like whether or not the story is actually any interesting anymore. But the combat is really doing a lot more work than I thought it would at this point.
Cool. I'm ready for it. I'm excited.
It's still a story about eco-terrorism. It seems like they have done some work to maybe seem like
make it more
Avalanche
palatable?
is.
Yeah.
I don't think.
But they
So
still
that was
set a
different-
fucking bomb.
That's what I'm
And the
saying.
demo ends with like the
Yeah, but there's a difference.
The thing
there's a difference.
The only difference there is the implications that they're putting on fucking what's the company.
No, because the in the original there's a willingness to do violence in a way
They have that willingness
that will harm a lot of people directly.
Yeah.
I haven't played this.
Has that changed?
Everyone I know who all the Final Fantasy old heads who I know are like, here it seems as if what was originally going to happen was going to be localized in such a way that would not cause exterior harm, whereas in the original they were ready to do that harm for the greater good, and that complicated it in a way.
There's no I don't think
there's no
any
lines where they go, oh no, like we seem to have done more. Like at least I'm not saying that.
Listen, I'm just talking about people who I know who literally. I'm really talking about my friend Jackson who just played the game, and my friend Dylan. They both just played the game like 2 weeks ago. And are now like, yo, fuck this. And they're both old heads. They're both people who I love, who are like old school fans, who are also the people sending me graphics, who are like, why did they take all the character out of this elevator design?
Right.
Which it looks like they did. I'm being the voice for the voiceless here.
I'm not
Go listen to Abnormal Mapping.
just-
Jackson has a
folks.
podcast. Jackson's podcast is great. Abnormal Mapping.
I'm not sure old Final Fantasy fans would be considered voiceless. I'm not sure if I would use that characterization. I am not like it would not be shocking to me if like modern Square Enix, older Nomura and Katase like looked at and went like, boy, well, there's not much we can do with the fact that this is a story about eco-terrorism that does result in loss of lives. We can't really get rid of that. How can we soften along the edges? But as Kato and I think we're trying to point out that like whatever, if that was intentional or just the result of doing a remake, I don't know. The what occurs in the demo is they plant a bomb, the plant explodes. The final scene that you get before it cuts to a montage of like, please go buy the game in the store, is like the plant exploding, huge chunks falling down, destroying buildings, massive power outages. I mean, like, there's no takeaway from there that is like, and maybe the game picks up after that, and it's with them sitting around a campfire going like, boy, we fucked up. We really just meant for that one thing to go down, get some good headlines against Shinra. That is definitely possible. Would not be shocked. But I think in the demo itself, it is not portrayed as like.
Yeah, but you do understand the rhetorical difference between the game in which that happens, and it's definitely the heroes did it. 100% the heroes did it.
Right.
And the game where Shinra does that.
There's definitely
That's a different thing.
Yeah, but I don't know that
I get it.
necessarily. I've seen a lot of questions of it like defanging them, but it's that they fucked up and didn't make the bomb good enough, not that they weren't fully committed to the.
Yeah, I just mean in
cause,
terms
right?
of
Yeah.
then the rest of that game being like, and these are our heroes and we're sticking with them.
Right.
You know, it doesn't.
Yeah. No, I think it's a fair point. I'll
we
be
could
curious
have
to see how they
10-hour conversation about Final Fantasy VII as a franchise. The way like the Turks go from being like the secret police of the fascist capitalists to being fan favorites who get to be action heroes in the rest of the Final Fantasy VII extended universe.
Right.
Like it is a fucking wild history of Square.
We don't talk about Crisis Core here.
We don't,
right?
but could we? But could we? I don't know. All right, we should move on. This
Lore
game's
Reasons
coming
about
out.
Final Fantasy VII.
That'd be a
would
good Lore Reasons.
It would be a good one.
Fuck.
Ask us in 5 years.
Ask us in a few years. Yeah, exactly. Rob, can we pivot to something that I know you care about, which is kings and such? You've been playing a game that I tried to play last night and realized I thought I had a code, but I didn't have a code. I had an email that was like, "Would you like a code?" So I got.
You know what? Don't
over.
worry about it. I actually am a little more cautious in my recommendation at this point, so I'm actually glad you didn't get too far into it.
Okay.
Because then I would have had things to answer for that I'm not prepared to answer for.
Uh-oh. Wait. Well, now we need. Wait. Are you saying are you waving off the conversation? Are you like fair catching? Like what is happening?
No. I'm ready to take this this discussion.
Okay.
But I'm no longer running it back for a touchdown. Yeah.
You're not gonna and you're also not gonna get slammed in the chest by a cornerback rushing you. I wouldn't be a cornerback anyway.
He's like, oh, you got a bad take.
Yeah.
You can't carry it like that.
Yeah, I'll make you fun. Yes, Your Grace is the game we're talking about. Yes, Your Grace, which is an interesting name. I saw an email about this and I was like, oh, that looks cool. And then you were like, you should play this game. And I was like, okay.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
What does the title "Yes, Your Grace" suggest to you? What do you expect from this game?
I've seen a trailer, so maybe I should
serving someone.
Okay.
let other people. Yeah.
I also played it
Like,
at the beginning a while ago.
Oh, okay.
Just never talked
So
about
Patrick,
All right, I haven't. I'm the only. Yes, Your Grace.
Yes, Your
When I
Grace.
hear that, yeah, I think it's subservient. I think it's like you're doing something in the name of the kingdom.
Right, but like a game titled that, would that like?
Oh,
what's
like
the
what type
vibe?
of game?
Yeah.
Yes, like a visual novel.
that is a good visual
Right.
novel name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Everyone should do the new Grand Blue Fantasy event that's right now. It's basically a visual novel. It's really good. Continue.
I kind of figured this like, Yes, Your Grace to me conjures things like Blackadder or things like that. Things like okay, this is a satire.
I was going to
of
say, yeah,
politics.
exactly. A little tongue in cheek. Yes, Your Grace.
in
Yeah,
the thick of
exactly.
it. Yeah, very much.
Of course, Your Grace. A
yeah.
little snarky to the idea of power, right? Like that power, the powerful are fallible and are not just fallible, but often have their heads up their asses and are making decisions that are actually bad for everybody. But hey, we're all fucking in it, huh? Here we are.
Yeah, and I was disabused of that rather quickly because, God, I need to figure out how to turn off my fucking Slack notifications without using all of them. Because every single time, like, the inability of people to type out a complete sentence in Slack and just hitting you with, like, word by word updates is just maddening. Talking about you, Emmanuel. I'm talking about you.
Wow.
Tell us more, Rob.
Damn. Called out.
Kato, cut that out.
Leave that in.
I'm gonna
So,
mark it just in case.
I'm going to turn this phone off. This is
You
is
get a new
how.
phone. I want to get a new phone, but I don't care about phones anymore, and it's fucking me up.
Yeah.
No, I can never get a new phone because I have a 3.5 millimeter jack in this phone,
Gotcha.
Wow.
and so this phone has to
dongles for
last
that.
me forever. I don't want a dongle.
Well, you can nobody wants a dongle. I'm just saying you
Well,
can
then
have
why
the
does every
dongle.
phone require one to use
Well,
your fucking headphones?
The guy was, you know,
I mean, I don't know. You
streaming
just get
to us
some
from his couch.
Bluetooth
Can't get a
there.
dongle. That's
well,
where he
hold
draws
on.
the
Hold on,
line.
you can get a laptop, but you can't get a dongle. Is
Yeah,
it a
'cause the lapdog
I need
serves
somewhere
a
to put my
utilitarian
I need
need.
somewhere to put my McDonald's next to my keyboard and mouse, but a dongle.
This is kind of what I imagined Yes, Your Grace would be like, with Kato and Patrick being the side-eyed subservience to Rob's like ineffectual king who can't really love it. Love it. Yes, Your Grace. Continue. Captain, your Rob, Your Grace, Rob Zachney. I love it.
So I was kind of disabused of those expectations really early on. It opens on a super downbeat note. Like you open basically on, you know, you are a lonely king on his throne, and it's the night of of your kingdom's fall. Basically,
okay.
Like people are like, you know, it's time. And you can hear like the drums of the enemy army beyond the walls, and like your troops are trying to desert. Nobody thinks you can hold the walls. Once they're breached, it's done. And the entire thing just has this funereal atmosphere. And then it cuts to like 1 year earlier. And what this turns into is kind of a story of you are the ruler of a small and somewhat impoverished kingdom. And you're also a proud dad, a loving dad. And Yes, Your Grace is a narrative game that has, in everything but presentation, has a lot in common with visual novels, Patrick. Stylistically, it's the most like Kingdom. If you remember that game from a couple
That
years
was
ago.
the
Yeah,
side.
I saw some.
Yeah.
Beautiful pixel art. Really good music, but this is a family drama centered on medieval court politics, and the game unfolds week by week as you sort of make different decisions with it. The core thing you do in this game is your character is sitting on his throne and petitioners show up, in a line, and you basically click on each one and see what it is they want. And usually they want one of three things. They want money, they want supplies, or they want you to send one of your agents, which could be your general, the court witch. And those are really finite resources. Like you got one general and one witch. They can't be in two places at once.
I knew there were two different things, but I was really hoping in my heart of hearts that you were like, you could send your general, comma, the court witch, who double duty. You know what I mean? Why?
I would get a lot
More
more
witch
utility.
generals.
If Stan knew a little bit of witchcraft,
Yeah.
I think I'd be better off. Your general's name is Stan, by the way.
Great. Good.
But so you've got people, beating a path to your door every day, asking for one of these three resources, and you don't have enough resources to grant all the requests. So you got to really be kind of judicious, but it has that choose your own adventure randomness to the entire thing, where stuff just happens. You don't know how it's gonna pan out.
Is this so? It is
and-
not a visual novel in the sense that there are dynamic events or systems at play, or is it deterministic? Are you basically
It
following?
feels deterministic.
Okay.
It feels like it feels like the resource counter is just there to open decision paths to you.
Okay.
But there is no real, there's no economy of
This
the
is-
game. It's just, did you save enough resources to make this decision?
Right. I should be clear that in the history of visual novels, this is totally a thing in visual novels. There are visual novels that have sim-like elements that represent statistics that can be that can be raised and lowered, even if it is also deterministic in terms of hey, because you're at this level of strength, then this other thing happens. So I want to be clear to the visual novel heads out there that I understand the breadth of the genre. Anyway.
Yeah.
So all this so far sounds pretty good to me. I'm kind of interested in what you've laid out, but it sounds like there's a turn.
There's some pace of play issues.
Okay.
For one, just there's a lot of clicking your little dude and making him walk across the screen to exit. It doesn't take long, but most of this game is getting through these decisions really quickly. And there's a lot of like padding around just moving your character around the castle and talking to different different characters in different rooms. It slows things down, and I found myself getting a little impatient for it. But I think the bigger issue is the game takes some weird and unexpected turns, and also deals with some heavier topics in a way that I'm not sure it's fully prepared to work through the ramifications of. And I'll give you a couple examples.
Okay.
Like something that happens really early in the game, and this is a spoiler, so if you really want to play this game, you should probably skip ahead probably about 5 minutes. But there's this dude who keeps showing up in your court, all paranoid. He thinks somebody is following him. And it's not played for laughs. Like, the guy seems like in genuine distress. But also, there's a lot of weird mysteries around your court. One of the things that this game centers on is a murder mystery. But this dude keeps showing up and keeps being convinced that someone is following him. Maybe it's you. He thinks he saw you following him, around. And the game never gives you any cue that, like, this dude needs help. Like, I'm like, okay, at some point this mystery is going to reveal itself, like what is actually going on with this guy. But you have nothing, you have two options when this guy comes through. You can throw him in the dungeon, or you can send him on his way and do nothing. And I was like, well, I'm not throwing him in the dungeon. So flash forward to like week 10, the dude drowns himself and like leaves a suicide note. And, explaining that he is convinced, like somebody's driven him to madness and despair, and he's taken his own life. And I was like, oh, so this entire thing was about like some pretty serious, like mental illness or its effects. And the game's way of letting me interact with that was ignore this dude entirely or throw him in jail. And the result of that was the guy throwing himself in a river, which then took away 3 contentment points from your populace. And I was like, that's not a great subplot.
No.
Like that's not well handled. And everyone talks in a sort of version of Simlish in this. So characters do have like vocal characterization, but it doesn't really give you much of a sense of, they're not strong characterizations. They're cartoon characterizations. They're like Peanuts adults almost.
Right.
So all this dude was like a tremulous, warbly, like panicky guy, and the entire thing ended up feeling a little bit, not necessarily cruel, but definitely callous, right? And so that was a moment where I kind of started to feel like, the game is not fully in control of the stories it's telling. So that was kind of a moment where I was taken aback by the game. The other thing that Yes, Your Grace is dealing with a lot is like gender politics. One of the first things you have to do.
You got 2 daughters, right? That's like that. The trailer to me was like, you were the king and you were surrounded by women. And are you dad enough to lead your daughters into the future? Is that accurate? Or do they take other directions with that?
Well,
okay.
I'm pretty sure I married off my teenage daughter on the first day of the game, basically.
Patrick's eyes.
What?
Patrick's eyes just opened all the way up.
Excuse me?
To a dude.
And also, what is pretty sure mean?
Oh, it might have happened on day 2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Okay, who is the suitor? How did this get set up?
So there's definitely this game makes explicit reference to The Witcher, by the way. Sort of
All right.
haha, there's stories about a crazy white-haired old dude who fights monsters. The thing that sets everything in motion is that your king, in addition to being kind of impoverished, etc., for some reason, once upon a time, made a promise to like some sort of bandit lord to give that bandit lord his firstborn daughter. And
Classic
there's a witch's curse somewhere in all this, but the game opens on, that bill's coming due. That dude, like you left on the other side of the mountains in like, no man's land. And now the bandit lord is here with an army to collect this old debt. And there's nothing you can do. Like the guy's too strong to fight. You need allies. So you go to a neighboring kingdom to basically get access to their army. And the price is you have to give your daughter to their prince and like sort of unite the dynasties that way. And like, yeah, that's medieval politics. That's some Crusader King stuff.
Yeah,
but
just the way history goes.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing is like here it is. This is a sort of a family drama. And literally on day one, I'm not sure there was like, I don't even think there was a path for me to not take this. Like I could have like one way or another.
Premise.
Yeah. And it really sucks because like the first thing you see is your daughter doesn't want to get married at all. Like she's actually really depressed because she realizes she's of marriageable age and like realizes what that means for someone in her position. And it's not like this part of the story. I'm fine with the game telling this kind of story.
Yeah, right.
And the game works through the ramifications. I don't necessarily have a problem with it. But I think it is the sort of whipsawing nature of the game's lightness with some topics and sort of introduction of clownish characters, and then also getting into really heavy shit and just weird shit like, hey, do you want to start officially dealing drugs? Do you want to be like,
what about unofficially?
Do you want to deal drugs in your kingdom for money?
What about unofficially? So they don't tie it back to me.
You can do that a little bit too.
Oh.
You like somebody's like, hey, I got a shipment of Oracle dust coming through.
Hell
you
yeah.
want in on this action?
Trying to get dusted.
And yeah, and I was like, wait, so we're doing.
So is this the thing that you're hitting here a little bit is like in Crusader Kings 2, there is something systemic at work here where you are absolutely marrying off your daughter to try to, cement a political alliance. You are absolutely making decisions for your whatever it is, your duchy, your county, your nation, your empire. That means the death of lots of people, that, continues the abuses of the monarchy, etc. But it isn't presented in the same format, and so it's a little more palatable for you. Is this a matter of the writing not being up to snuff? Is this a matter of the camera lens being so focused in on you as the patriarchal? And I don't even mean that in I do mean that in a gendered way, but I actually mean that almost in a more of a power focus way. Like you are the head of state, and the camera follows the head of state, and the head of state is kind of detached and makes these things, and is kind of like the comic and heroic center of frame. Is that where you think it stumbles a little bit?
Yeah, I think maybe part of it is nobody has any kind of agency in this story but you.
Sure. I don't know. That bandit lord seems like like things went.
Yeah,
away.
but he's an off-screen character. Like your wife basically stays in her bedroom, and if you want to go talk to your wife, you go talk to her there, and she doesn't really like initiate anything. Your daughter's kind of wait to be told what to do, and that's not necessarily, again, like this is a game about patriarchy, but I think there is a way to express, like there's a great degree of lack of agency for women in this world, which I understand, but also the way they are depicted as individual characters, they are kind of passive and not like kind of static. Right. In a lot of ways, like they're not like they're very little that they do catches you off guard. They don't. Does not often feel like there's much of a reaction to your decisions from the people most directly affected by them. Instead, the only real reactions in this world are what options are brought to your door the next week, what problems are brought to your door the next week based on a decision you made. And so I think it's just one of those cases where there's a lot of narrative threads in play, but not all of them feel like they have much life to them. right? A lot of them feel like a series of static backdrops against which you are making decisions, and that turns me off just a little bit. And I think there's kind of, and a game that is also sort of trying to comment on patriarchal systems in this way. Also, it had, for a game like that, Yes, Your Grace has kind of a weird, not puritanical streak, but it has kind of a Protestant work ethic type of value system. Like, the town drunk comes to you a few times, and then you learn he has a sad backstory. You have a choice between giving him 1 gold so he can buy himself a new fishing rod, or you can give him a lot of gold so he can get cleaned up and get his life together. And if you do that, he shows up a few weeks later, he's cleaned up and he's got his life together. In a way, that's a positive story, but also at the same time, like, is that how alcoholism works? Is it that easy? Hey, why don't you get yourself a shave and change clothes and pull it together, man? Like, yeah, pretty sure I don't remember that working.
No, yeah, not so much. Well, I'm probably still going to try to at least check it out this weekend.
I think the thing that excited me at first, I was like, initially it felt a bit like King of Dragon Pass.
Right, that is the pitch you gave me that made me go, aha.
Well, that was going to be my ask, was like, if you like this idea, but if you haven't played something like it, and if either of you had a recommendation that better hit on that, I wonder what the options would be. I know you guys had mentioned Dragon Pass in our Discord, but if there were other games that kind of thematically or mechanically play in the same, that aren't as far as like a Crusader Kings, right? Like, this feels like a game. Like, I look at Crusader Kings like, I want to watch Rob and Austin play Crusader Kings. I have zero interest, or I would play it with them over my shoulder, but I'm not going to do it by myself. Yes. But I love the idea of Crusader Kings if it was threaded into a more approachable game.
You mentioned King of Dragon Pass. I think also 6 Ages, the follow-up to King of Dragon Pass. Yeah. These are games that are both of those games can be very intimidating because they're both like huge walls of text and also strange UIs compared to most games. They're fantastic. I cannot give either of them a high enough recommendation. I wonder if there is something here that is like, part of me wonders. I never played this follow-up to Reigns, to either of to Reigns, which is a much simpler designed game. And I'm curious if those would be something here. I don't know what else comes to mind for you, Rob. Long Live the Queen is a much simpler game that is much lighter in nature but has a different. Well, there's lots of death in Long Live the Queen. Long Live the Queen is like a run-based visual novel that is extreme.
I was going to say, is that the one where we?
Yes, y'all.
Is that the one we did at the launch? Or we did that was the launch. Yeah.
Yes. Long Live the Queen.
The origin of me attempting to become a voice actor.
Yeah, exactly. Your original voice acting audition. Was Long Live the Queen. And that game
hasn't resulted in anything. I'm still taking calls, though.
Good. Likewise, is a kind of branching path, even though there are statistics and you're making choices about which classes to attend and stuff like that, is basically a branching path story where those stats open up certain paths and make certain paths viable. You're playing a princess to a kingdom while there is like international conflict happening, and you're trying to determine which suitor fits you best. Like it's I love Long Live the Queen. I did a Long Live the Queen Let's Play years ago that I don't even know if it's available anymore, nor would I necessarily recommend it if it is. But people should check out Long Live the Queen. I
think it's a very different vibe because it's a tactics game, but like Banner Saga probably has the similar vibe of like, you're making decisions, you don't know how they're going to play out. Relationships are changed. It's also similarly opaque as to how, like, again, the choose your own adventure thing. The outcome of decisions is deeply capricious, and there's a lot of stuff that'll happen that like you couldn't possibly have known that. But I think it scratches that itch, and I'm not necessarily saying like, don't play this game. I'm still intrigued by it. Initially I really thought we had here something that was a decent comparison to King of Dragon Pass, where it's combining narrative and systems. To your first question, Austin, like, are these systematized? In King of Dragon Pass, largely, yes, things are systematized. Like you're interacting through a narrative framework a lot of times, but like you are pulling levers on systems and seeing them have impacts in the world. Here, there's the appearance of systemization, but it's actually just a way of gating possibilities.
Hey, real quick, and this is not a thing that I do traditionally because I think it's good to take inspiration from things. I think it's good to have like to think about art styles as being kind of broad and overlapping, and in general, I'm not trying to stir the pot and start shit. But Rob, have you seen Ash of God's Redemption on Steam? You should look at this game. And you tell me you flip through this fucking game and tell me that they are not that this is not like, I don't think it's litigious, but this is just fake Banner Saga game I've ever seen in my life.
Oh no,
it might be good. Like, I don't know if it's good or not.
Oh boy,
but there's the 13th screenshot that has like the beautiful landscape shot of like the town where everybody is. There's little bubbles to click on to talk to people. It is wild. The first time I saw it, I was like,
oh my god,
oh my gosh. Oh, this is screenshot of like the ability tree.
Yes, dude.
That art looks just
it's wild.
Holy
Banner
Lord.
Saga.
The scene where these guys are talking to each other.
Yes.
That's the same.
It's the exact presentation.
I need a font comparison, folks.
It's unbelievable. I don't know why you. How do you do?
Wait, hold on. Can I give you a kicker?
Yeah.
If you scroll down to the Ash of Gods about this game, there are a bunch of quotes. There are some reviews. Don't look.
Okay.
Don't look.
Okay, I haven't looked yet.
There's a bunch of 9s out of 10s. Obviously, Neo Crisis. We're all waiting to see.
Okay.
Gosh, why am I dragging?
Don't
Neo
drag
Crisis?
Neo.
Anyway.
Also, what is
the quote?
Okay.
Neo Crisis is going to be my new political website that I'm opening up when this doesn't work out. A very different topic, the video games. So the quote in this graphic is, "Very beautiful game from what I can see." Quote, Arnie Jorgensen, stoic of the Banner Saga.
Oh, can you imagine?
But the quote, can we break down this quote?
Yeah.
Very beautiful game from what I can see.
I want to know the context.
That's a very weird quote to put in there. What does that mean? Very beautiful game from what I can see.
I need the full context. I really do. I'm pulling it up. Also, okay. Okay, listen. All right. I didn't do this deep dive. Now I'm doing this deep dive. Here's a post that begins, "We're not a clone of the Banner Saga or the Banner Saga 3.
Wow.
Not 2. I guess 2? Does that mean you're a clone of the Banner Saga 2?
Wow.
Though that is the most popular question, the most frequent thing people criticize us for. I'm endlessly grateful for Arnie Jorgensen and his team, but we are writing our own long story. I will tell you about it on this website. This is a person basically saying we're writing our own shit. I want to know, and this is like, okay, there is a big long thing here about what the history is.
I guess they're owning it, right?
Yeah,
like there's one thing to, like, usually what happens here is it's an egregious clone that pretend like either doesn't acknowledge or hand waves their direct inspiration. Here, it seems like it is inescapable that this was directly inspired by the Banner Saga in a lot of ways, but at least they're saying like, "Hey, we're inspired. We're trying to do our own thing." And they developed. Stoic knows what it is. They could have done something about it if they felt it was, legally.
Here's what I will say: this post basically says, "We are not taking this from the Banner Saga." They're saying when we saw the Banner Saga. When I saw the Banner Saga, I've resigned myself to the fact that people will always compare our project with it. I said to myself, dude, this is the European reinvention of visual novels. So, we kind of walked back around to... I will also say I found the post where Arnie Jorgensen makes this claim, the very beautiful game from what I see. He says,
yes,
very beautiful game from what I see. Keep up the good work. So, completely genuine, completely sincere. Got the nod. Maybe I'll walk it back. I'm not too big. I'll eat a little crow. I do think it looks like this. I do think it looks a little too close. But
that for me is like, I think. Here's the thing. I like the Banner Saga a lot. If somebody else made the Banner Saga, but like a different story, but like here's more of that.
You should play this. This is the thing that we should do. We should
Because-
own this. We should own this. Rob is taking off his glasses. You're not supposed to touch your face, Rob. No face touching.
No, I've been outside in hours. Don't worry about it. Like, if that contaminated me, then like it's Mask of the Red Death time. It was already here among us. No, like, is the combat system the same where you have to do chip damage on everyone and slowly weaken them? Is that the same? But I do think the style's cool. Like, it does look very similar. But the thing that
You look at the animations. There's a fucking animation on this page. It's unbelievable. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
No, but where you do a disservice to yourself is like when you start like cloning things like basic UI elements, right?
Yeah.
Like just the way text appears, just the way these like event pop-ups are laid out. Like when you do that, it does make it look like you just took someone else's complete design and then put your own story in
if they don't care, like then like we often talk that we want to live in a world where people like, yes, credit is important. People should, have ownership over, what they make, but also we also advocate for like, we wish things were a little squishier in terms of what people could do. And it's like, if the developers, if we look at the most ideal light, where like the developers of Stoic have seen this, said keep up the good work, and have taken
what if this kicks ass?
That's what I'm saying. Mostly positive on Steam. I'm checking to see who I should be emailing to get a code. Because I think I did originally see this from an email where someone reached out and was like, look at this. This seems like a thing you'd want to play. And I was like, it seems like a thing I did play. Let's look into it, Rob. I think we have homework to do.
Yeah. Over the weekend, we need an update.
Yeah. I did not, in fact, get an email about this. I was wrong. I must have just seen it on Steam.
Oh, and I got one of those newfangled DisplayPort cables, so I can play it on my desktop.
Newfangled.
That's why you're not on the couch today. I have a couple more things to shout out, and then we should wrap up because we have a meeting in a little bit.
Yeah.
I'd like to at least go grab a sandwich before that.
Yeah.
I want to shout out Murder by Numbers.
Yeah.
Which, did you start playing that too, Connor?
I did.
What do you think of it?
I enjoy it. It's
Can you explain
very
what it is?
much
Yes.
like what if you took a Phoenix Wright game, but instead of pixel hunting in those investigation scenes, you did Picross. It has
Like 2D
the
Picross
same-
puzzles.
Yeah, 2D Picross. Which also, this is the first Picross I've ever played. It's like,
Oh, interesting.
this is neat.
Yeah,
I've never,
I love
tried this
Picross.
puzzle type. It's really cool.
Picross, for people who don't know, is a type of puzzle where you're given, it's sort of like, I guess it's comparable in some ways to something like Sudoku in that it's a block puzzle on your
Right.
screen.
And the blocks.
You are filling in blocks
Yeah.
according to, on the edges of the screen, it says numbers, and it'll say like, oh, okay, so there's a row of, it's a 10 by 10 grid, let's say, right? And at the edge of row 1, column 1, like row 1 at the very top on the left side of row 1, it says 10. And you're like, oh, okay, well then I fill in all 10 of those. The one under that, it'll say, let's say 8. And you're like, well, okay, what does filling in, if there's 8, that's not the whole grid.
Right.
But I do know that certain numbers are going to be filled, or certain blocks in that row are
Right.
going to be filled in no
It'll be
matter
like
what.
that center 4 that overlap.
Exactly.
Because no matter where you put the chunk of 8, those 4 will always be
will
part
always
of that
be
group.
part of that group. Exactly like that. And so bit by bit, you do that, and eventually a picture actually emerges to some degree. Maybe
Yeah.
it's not always as clear as they might think it is.
Yeah.
But like, oh wow, look, this was a wine bottle. Oh, this was I was drawing a fingerprint.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
And so the setup is you're basically this little robot who's lost his memory, but
You're
knows-
saying Scout as the lead that you are?
I think so. Well,
I think I'm Honor.
at least when you do. I think
when you
you're
do the
both. I think you're
puzzles.
both. When you
Yeah.
do the puzzles, you're playing because the robot's visual what's it called, scanner is broken, so you have to unjumble these by doing the puzzles, figure out what the actual image is.
Yeah.
But yeah, you end up and it's part of the reason I make the Phoenix Wright comparison is not just the kind of like structural cadence and the way they change expression and use sound effects is very, very, very similar.
Right. It is, again, kind of
is-
like a visual novel
Yeah.
in the Phoenix Wright style
Yeah.
of characters talking on screen, music playing, switching between sprites as people get upset or get excited.
Yep. But also
Ironic.
the composer.
I do not miss the irony of the last conversation being me dragging something for biting style too hard and us pivoting to a thing we both like because it bites style so well.
But I think there's a difference here where it's biting style, but not necessarily exact UI elements or even character design.
Yeah.
It's more about a style of presentation of those things, right?
There is that sound effect where it goes like bling, or then it click. There's a lot of sound work here that is
There's
just
definitely
Phoenix
a
Wright.
couple that I'm like, that's
And they did get the composer. They did get the composer from Phoenix Wright to do at least some of the music.
I think all of them. I think
Is it all of it?
I think the
Okay.
soundtrack, the entire soundtrack.
Okay, cool. And then also the character designer from Hatoful Boyfriend
That's okay.
did
right.
some of the character design here at least.
Okay.
The pitch is basically it's 1996. There's the kind of lead protagonist is this woman named Honor Mizrahi, who is an actress on a B TV show, like a detective show, a bad detective show from the 90s, who is getting fired. Who's the end of the season is wrapping up, and she's not going to be on the third season or whatever the next season. I don't know why I assumed third, probably more like sixth or something.
Who knows? Yeah.
And it's like a buddy cop drama where she's the second cop, she's the buddy cop, and is moments after she basically gets let go, her boss gets killed. And it sends her into a long spiraling investigation in which she has to go from being a TV cop or a TV detective to being a kind of independent detective. She has her own relationship with the police in her family history. She has like her own drama around the movie studio. It's filled with larger than life characters in some ways, and also very down to earth characters in other ways. You very much have here's another way in which it's not Phoenix Wright. There's just like an openly gay character in this game out the gate who is like your best friend, who is pretty well written, I would say. There's a moment where he said that he definitely didn't do the killing because it was a blunt object killing, and killing someone with a blunt object is just so straight. And I was like, yeah, nah, you're right. You're
God,
right, Mike.
Give me that old timey detective novel shit. Well, I would have killed that person.
Yeah, but
with a different aesthetic.
come on. It's and also that character just slaps. That character is great. And is also just like super horny for the big buff dude who is hanging around, like the odd job guy who's on I almost said campus on set, I guess.
Right.
And then you're solving the puzzle, you're solving the mystery by going around to these different locations, scanning them for clues, and then doing a Picross puzzle for each clue.
To uncover what the clue is.
Right.
You do
Which
still
is
kind
weird.
of do the Well, that's at that point. That's where you're taking you're looking as scout as the robot and like trying to. It's like the scout piecing together what the object is once you like see it, but like can't process it. That second layer. But yeah. I'm really enjoying it, and
Have you finished the first case?
no, I have not.
It ends it's like a really interesting ending that is very clearly spinning up to a lot more. I'm in the middle of the second case now. I just met Honor's mom, who is great.
My big question is, because given all the similarities to Phoenix Wright, the thing that you end up doing in those games is after gathering enough evidence and questioning enough people, you go to court and like all of that plays out. That's the kind of second part of this where I'm wondering where exactly that all leads. Like I've already you do present evidence that you found to question people that are like around you, but wondering whether or not the structure ever.
If there's a second mode, so to speak, right? Because in Phoenix Wright, it's like there's the discovery period, there's the investigation period, and then there's the confrontation in the courtroom,
right?
Which then takes up the bulk of the back half of each case, right?
Where you piece all together all those things, and like that was always really satisfying.
Yeah, that through how far I've played, that doesn't happen. There is a climax in the first episode, and part of the way the climax works is there is a different mode of Picross that you play.
Okay.
That is more about rapid fire like skill than about like it's like the final secret puzzle in The Witness, where it's like, do you know the skill? Do you have the skill set to do these dynamically?
Right.
And pretty quickly versus doing it like, which all, by the way, I'm not a big Witness fan. I'm on the record as not being a big fan of the Witness. That secret puzzle that is like doing a speed run of a bunch of dynamic puzzles is like successfully doing that is like all time achievement in video games for me. I love that shit. But yeah, so that's how those mission. That's how the first case anyway kind of wraps up. Is this other style, and also some just like really hard puzzles, or like not really hard, but more difficult puzzles. And I think it just hangs together really well.
That's cool.
It's set in 1996. The aesthetic is very 90s in terms of like character design and like t-shirts tied around the waists,
right.
And there's a character who I just met who is like very like Fresh Prince era Will Smith, and like that's dope. Like I feel like there is a degree of like placeness here that the Phoenix Wright games explicitly exist in a very strange alternate reality,
right?
Especially in their localization that puts them in LA, but a version of LA that has like Japanese shrines just outside of town. I mean, I guess I'm sure there's a shrine somewhere in LA.
They never undid that in future?
I don't think so. I think it's always still been that. And also the laws have been passed to change the justice system to have 3-day trials and all that shit. But no, I really liked that. So that's the thing I want to shout out is Murder by Numbers. I'm gonna probably keep playing at it because I've been like kind of poking at it every night and getting a little bit further through.
I've been playing it on my commute. It's really good for the Switch. Just do one of the Picross.
It's also coming to PC tomorrow. Okay, I guess here's the thing worth saying. The embargo was supposed to be today when you're hearing this, and then they moved it back a day to today, the day we're recording this, because it's now a Switch exclusive for a day, for one day. And then on Friday, today, the day this podcast comes out, it is now on PC also, which I'm sure is a fun way to play it.
Yeah.
Anyone else have something to shout out?
Yeah, two things real quick. One, I started playing Spectre Knight, the second expansion campaign for Shovel Knight, and it is tremendous. I thought that the one before that was good. This one is, I've been told by a lot of people reliably that it's like their favorite one, and I get it. Spectre Knight has all these dash abilities. You can skateboard around the environment. It's just the mobility stuff is so much fun. It is unbelievably good. And it's brand new stages, so it's not the Plague Knight. The first expansion is just recycling through the original stages with new abilities. These are brand new stages that are meant to take advantage of. He can also walk up walls and jump off them. Like there's just so many. It's a totally different way to play the game, and it is really, really fun. So I highly recommend that. The other one that I didn't like, but I wanted to mention because I put 2 hours into it to see if I wanted to like it, was Journey to the Savage Planet, which I'll go ahead and point people to a really good article written by Paul Tamayo over at Kotaku from January, where he investigates and explains why the word savage is maybe like don't use it. It says that this game in particular is not necessarily trying to use it in the way that its historical problems have, but hey, you should be aware of it and maybe just don't use that in the future. But I, for some reason in my head, had thought that Journey to the Savage Planet was a like Minecraft or a building game. I don't know why I thought that.
It presents that way in ads and stuff, in trailers, but it is not. It is not at all.
Not even close.
Well, there's a little bit of crafting, but not the sort of crafting you do in those games. It's just collecting
it's
stuff.
Metroid. It's Metroid Prime. Like it's trying to be a new Metroid Prime, and that's when I read a write-up about it that was like, "Hey, this game's trying to be that," and I was like, you know what? Yeah, like I fucking love the Metroid Prime games. I would love even a bad one of those, and so I jumped into Journey to the Savage Planet, and I just don't like the world at all. Like the mechanics are okay, but I don't like exploring the world. I don't find it interesting to look at. And so I got about like 2 hours in, and over that 2 hours was like that thrust you kind of get from a game scratching an itch where you're like, all right, maybe this is just enough. Yeah. And then when I got to like the world kind of opened up, and I just didn't care about what was in front of me, and I just didn't enjoy. So the mechanics were just off enough that I didn't like my time with it, so I ended up turning it off. I've heard other folks having a good enough time, and I think often it's like, how much of an itch do you want? Like everyone has their itch that wants to get scratched. Like if yours, like Metroid Prime is high for me, but not as high as some other stuff. And And it just wasn't enough for me to keep going. So it was like it's an okay one of those. It has a very Borderlands South Parkian sense of humor that did not help at all, because it just tosses that in your face constantly. It's not just in the writing, it's in the way that enemies are presented and how you interact with the environment. And that stuff just fell completely flat for me. Yeah. So all that added up to it. At a certain point, it was like, I was trying to take February to be a month where like, I'm going to try a bunch of stuff before we get into this race that is about to, I'm supposed to get like a code for the new Ori game that's supposed to be long. And then, Doom and Final Fantasy. Like, it's a lot's happening in the next couple of weeks. And that one, I am historically not someone that stops playing a game when they start. But this one, I was like, I need to be smart, respect myself, respect my time, and not go forward with this. And then the third thing, which is not a shout out, it's just it broke while we were recording, is that HBO is doing a Last of Us series in which the showrunner is going to be the Craig
T. Nelson,
who did Chernobyl.
No? Okay.
Craig Mazin.
Yeah.
Who did Chernobyl, which I watched the first 2 episodes, and I need to get back and watch it because those first 2 episodes were incredible. But it actually was
all
like
that shit you told me about happened in the first 2 episodes?
Yeah, dude. And then I like kind of found it, like I read some stuff about stuff happening to animals, and like what if I just like never found a night where it was like, who wants to watch this part of the show? But I want to get back to it eventually.
You're
but it was
skipping
like
the most
really,
important
really,
Craig Mazin news. The other thing he's doing, the screenplay he's writing for Borderlands.
What?
The Borderlands?
He's doing that too?
Yeah.
He's doing
He's writing the Borderlands adaptation.
Dirtbag is directing that. Eli Roth.
Really?
Well, but that makes sense because Craig Mazin's history is like working on
like the Hangover movies, Scary Movie.
Yes.
Yeah,
Scary Movie. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, you know what pays the bills?
It's so fucking wild.
Script, probably.
That you go from the Hangover Part 3 to Chernobyl.
I just
you know what?
This fascinates
People
me
be contained in multitudes out here.
Yeah.
It also sometimes feels like writers, producers like become brands that you slap on a property, and you're like, they're doing this. Like I was watching Ford versus Ferrari the other day, and I realized that Jez Butterworth gets the screenplay credit for that. And Butterworth did Edge of Tomorrow, but he's also a really like well-regarded playwright. Did a really well-reviewed play called Jerusalem. Did its name escapes me now. The Ferryman, which I saw like last year, and is a really good writer, but you would never detect any individual style in those screenplays. Really, you just wouldn't. Right. But it is like it seems like it is a good gig to have one of the to become a useful credit on a project, to give it kind of a gravitas that maybe it wouldn't necessarily have otherwise.
God, imagine being the person who first has to sit down with Mazin with the Chernobyl pitch and is like, you're the Scary Movie 4 guy and you want to do Chernobyl?
I think that was his pet project. Like I don't.
I'm just talking about like HBO on the distribution.
I made 3 hits about unexpected disasters.
Right. Well, you know what? Sure. Totally. I'm not, comedy writing is very hard. Even schlocky comedy writing seems like a difficult process. Some people liked those movies, I
don't even know that people liked the second and third one as much as it was like, there was just momentum from.
You're talking about The Hangover here, not Scary
First
movie.
movie's all right. First one's all right, but that's because
it's
constructed like a mystery. It just isn't one.
Also, I think I'll hold judgment. I was debating whether or not I prefer the co-wrote Hangover 2, 3, and then goes on to do Chernobyl model more or less than I did the Hangover movies and went on to do Joker. But you know what? Bite my fucking tongue. I do one more thing, one more game to shout out, which is Grand Blue Versus. I already talked about playing Grand Blue Fantasy, the mobile or the browser game that you can play on phones, that I have fallen pretty deep into, and I think is pretty cool. I'm building a good team. It's fun. But Versus,
this makes sense because I did a Google search when I saw you were playing it, and I was like, the fuck is he doing so into a fighting game? Like, I
I've
was like,
also-
sure, like versatility. I know, but I mean, like the way you were talking about it. I was like,
yeah.
How could he be playing the fighting game that much? I don't understand.
And then you realize there's a mobile game that's also
Well, yes,
an
then
RPG.
I figured, and then I heard mobile game, and I was like,
yeah.
this all makes
totally.
sense.
Yeah, you
Gotcha
weren't on
game.
this part of the episode last week where that became the thing I could look at on my computer or my phone that wasn't Twitter. That's the reason I got it. It's part of why I got into it. The other half is Versus was coming out, and I wanted like, what is the deal with Versus? What is the deal with this world? What's the deal with with the Primal Eternals or whatever? Anyway, that game is pretty fucking good. Versus the new Arxis game. Kyle, you were again.
I'm
We're
super
synced
into
up
it.
this week.
Yeah,
we're playing
we
all the
are.
same shit. Who's your main? Who you maining?
Fucking Luane. The
Fuck
fucking
We're
the
done.
Cat Bros.
The Cat Bros are great. There's a character in this game. Do you want to explain? You explain Luane. I'll get them.
What
a
do
video.
I have? Okay, there's a character in this game that's 3 cat brothers, 3 very attractive cat brothers, who
They're very attractive.
who have a whose super move is the World Tree Yggdrasil,
Yeah. Well, okay. You can't explain it like that.
who is a large anime lady. That here's the thing. I thought was a win button for a while. I was like,
It
this
was
is great.
for a while.
For like a hot second, and
Yeah.
then I went online last night. People have already learned how to deal with the big tree wife, and it's
Well, I ain't people because
I couldn't be people either, honestly. Like, I'm just like giving myself up to the tree wife if that shit comes down on me.
Yeah.
But people been jumping and fucking air blocking all my shit. I'm like, damn. But yeah, I am really enjoying this game a lot. What's very funny was that what you mentioned before about it there being a single dedicated skill button.
Yeah.
That kind of opened up the space of like not having to do the kind of traditional
Like
inputs
technical
that you do.
executions. Yeah. Like you're not doing the Hadouken motion. You're
Right.
just hitting R1.
What's very funny is that I came in, looked at that, was really interested, and then went through. This is my Super Tuesday. Went through the entirety of their like training mode.
Yeah.
Which is really good and explains like a bunch of things that a lot of training modes leave out about like
Why you would do the thing.
Right, like the core mechanics of like, oh, this is a thing that you would where you're learning how to respond to a certain type of thing, which also means that you can then also execute the thing as well, right? Like a mix up, like being able to jump over someone and like hit them in a way where the hit comes from behind instead of the front, and it's ambiguous, and you got to be able to learn how to read that. Like they explain to you how to do that, and then you can also then take that knowledge to do it as well in your own games.
Yeah, and the fact that they're like, hey, learn how to defend and anticipate. Okay, is this going to be a low attack or a jumping attack?
Yeah.
And like learn how to respond to that specifically is so good.
Oh, fuck.
What's up?
I hit play on the Catboy video, and the volume was maxed.
That's very funny.
When it started.
That's just
and
them.
It was
That's
too
just
intense.
the Luane and his bros are just like that.
Yeah.
The training modes even go into specific character things. Like, here are 5 combos to learn as this character, and briefly, here's why you would use this. The reason you would start with this like powered up version of a Fireball, so you could rush in behind it, and they'll have to block it or try to jump over. In which case, you should get ready to like that is really really good.
Yeah. Just the idea, just the simple idea of like, here's a character jumping in the air and then them getting behind you while something else is coming from the front, like being an option, opened up a thing where with Luane, there's like 1 or 2 like ranged attacks that are kind of slow enough that I've gotten to using that as mix-up potential of like, there's this missile barrage that kind of hits like da-da-da-da-da, but while they're blocking that, I can jump over them and hit them from the back. And it's like, I wouldn't even thought to try that if that the thing about mix-ups wasn't in the training.
So wait, is the end of that story that you don't use the R1's like special button anymore? And you just use
So
your,
there's a secondary objectives in the training mode that's like hit S rank in this training mission, do the training mission in such and such way, and the last one on most of these is do the entire training mission using the regular commands. Right. and I went through and did that
Same.
for all of them, and now I'm not even I'm not thinking about that.
That button.
I fuck up and like, oh, this is the other interesting thing about this is that there's a cooldown for skills.
Yes.
Your skills are all displayed and are attached with if you're using the skill
Active
button.
time battle.
Yeah.
It's not, but they are cooldowns.
Sure.
Yeah.
Unlike your average
Any other fighting
every
game,
other fighting
yeah.
game where skills you can spam Hadouken and the only thing stopping you is the recovery frames after the move. This has like a small cooldown window, like square of like the way the skill button works is that hitting the skill button with a direction, either back, down, forward, or without any direction, does one of the 4 different skills that each character has. And then and those all appear under your health bar, and you can see when it's on cooldown. And it means that there's, you're making these decisions on like when to use what skills much more thoughtfully, because even if there's one that you prefer, you're not going to have it available all the time, right? And that with the addition of an evade, which is really cool, where you can actually evade past someone to end up on the other side of them,
Right.
and just also evade in place to avoid projectiles, has I don't know, like I'm really connecting to this in a way that I haven't connected to it in a fighting game of this style since. Dragon Balls is like its own thing entirely because
Of Dragon Ball.
of Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
But like,
A much more complicated game than this in some ways too. Even though I still
Right.
think that game is compared to other anime fighters much simpler.
right.
This takes it another step, and it's not
Absolutely.
It's not.
and it's a skill. It's like the skill floor is lower, but I feel like there's space.
I'm still getting
that's-
fucking
that-
wrecked.
yeah.
I'm still trash at this game, and I have been playing like pretty much every night. And I'm just getting the floors being mopped with me. So there were definitely skill tiers,
Right.
and even at the
Absolutely.
low tier rank matches.
Who are you maining?
Mostly Percival.
Okay.
Percival's dope. I like the reach. I like the
Reach is good.
I like the idea on Percival as a character who like has to find a space to get the like stacks.
Right.
To do like to be as versatile as possible.
I'm-
Percival's a character who if you hit like down on an attack button, gets a number of charges that make the rest of his moveset more powerful.
Yeah.
And that's fun to like try to find that space. And it's probably why I'm also getting fucking worked. I should just play as Gran and should just like
Right.
get good at the basics of the game and just deal with it. But
It's all right.
Gran's got that boot. People
That
be trying to
boot.
boot me in the face. But it's really good. It's gorgeous. It's like
Yeah.
the soundtrack is really good. I like.
Have you tried the RPG mode?
Yeah, it's all right.
Okay.
It's.
I haven't
I'm
touched
gonna
it
beat it
yet.
because
I
you can
just-
unlock the final boss of the game, who's also a DLC character for free if you beat RPG mode.
Oh, really?
Beelzebub. Yeah. Mhm.
Sick. Okay.
That's part of why he's cheaper than the other DLC
Right.
character who everyone is playing now.
Yeah, I keep seeing her.
Yeah. She's great, but I'm not paying money until I'm good at this game. So,
Same.
Fuck that.
Which also led me to get. I did this backward. Well, I mean, maybe not backwards. Actually, the same way where like I also picked up Grand Blue. Now, that game
Welcome.
has some really good. Like I see the like appeal of its small story moments.
Yeah.
looking really nice and like feeling like
They feel nice. They're like,
yeah,
it reminds me
it's
a lot
just
of Final
like
Fantasy 14 in the sense that like I'm mostly here at this point for characters that
Yeah.
I care about, which is not where I was 100 hours ago with Final Fantasy 14. But very quick little story beats hit like really good. And I'm only 12 chapters into Grand Blue Fantasy, the RPG now, but I'm really enjoying it. I said this earlier, but there's an event in Grand Blue Fantasy right now called Seeds of Redemption that is a free event. I mean, all the events are free, but you have to unlock them normally. Or I guess the side stories are unlockable as you play through the game and get further and further in the chapters. And those are past events. But Seeds of Redemption you can do right now. It's characters I didn't know before I started playing this mode.
Yeah.
It obviously takes place like far in the future of the campaign of like the main thing because everyone knows who you are and you're already friends with all of them. But it's basically like the Sky Cops are fighting against Outer Heaven, against our fantasy Outer Heaven. and it's sick. And they're both heroic groups in the fiction of this world, and so it's sort of like the Avengers versus X-Men type vibe,
right?
Where it's like, oh, the slightly more militarist superheroes are fighting the slightly more outsider militarist superheroes.
New Avengers versus
right.
What was the other? Yeah,
and
Secret Avengers.
Secret Avengers, yeah. And it actually, like, the way that they tell that story is really good. You can play it out pretty much out the gate. I think at least within the first 5 chapters of Grand Blue Fantasy, and it just like tells a story using the mechanics of a mobile RPG extremely well. Like, without getting into spoilers, they very much like use every vector possible down to ability names and stuff to tell the story. Cool. And it has a number of fights where you, instead of playing just your character, are playing the characters from the story you're playing through and using their abilities. And it's just like, mwah, it's so good. It's like choreographed RPG fights in a way that you don't get a lot of and it's just great. So go play that. Seeds of Redemption is the currently ongoing event in the Grand Blue Fantasy mobile game. That's all I got. I'm going to try to play some verses. We should try to play some. I need to play against people who I won't be embarrassed to play against because of how trash I am.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Everyone's trash.
Yeah. Ego is bad.
Yeah.
I don't mind being trash against randos. It's harder to be trash against friends.
That's fair.
You know?
Yes.
I think that's going to do it for real for us. We don't have time to go get a sandwich anymore, Kato.
I think there's food upstairs.
Okay, we'll take a look at food upstairs and see what we can do. Thank you for joining us this week. We'll be back next week with more Waypoint Radio. I guess, as always, I'm going to leave it open real quick. Is there anything on the site people should go read over the weekend?
Well, you should definitely read that piece about the Banjo, the cutely named surveillance panopticon company that is operating in
Motherboard's
Utah.
big feature this week.
Yeah.
It is eye-opening, and it is like kind of horrifying the degree to which massive invasions of privacy are being signed off on by people who don't understand the full ramifications of what they are agreeing to slick con men. And I think this is kind of one of the first, like, there's already kind of a privacy crisis, but one of the things that really comes through in this piece is there is a literacy crisis among policymakers when discussing these new technologies that bad actors or irresponsible actors are really easily taking advantage of. So I think that is a piece people should definitely check out. It's not about games, but here's the part, like, there's a part of my brain, Austin, I hate this part of my brain. I read the story, I'm like, this is extremely bad, but it's extremely good cyberpunk.
Yes, it's we fucked up in general. I feel like we've aestheticized, our taste has been aestheticized such that we don't react as severely as we should for stories like this. This story is available on Motherboard. You can search for the headline, "This Small Company is Turning Utah into a Surveillance Panopticon," by Jason Emanuel and Joseph Cox. So shout outs to them. All right. You can follow us, as always, on Twitter, twitter.com/waypoint, waypoint.vice.com. Waypoint.zone still brings us here. Follow me on Twitter at Austin_Walker. Follow Waypoint, twitter.com/waypoint. Kato, where can people find you?
Fucking in B rank, getting my ass whooped.
You're at B rank? See, that's what I'm saying. I can't play against you.
I'm like,
I can't play against you.
Or what,
I don't want to talk to you.
Okay,
You're too good for me. Motherfucker out here. Damn. They don't let me in to B rank. Patrick, where can people find you?
At Patrick Club.
And Rob Zachney.
At Rob Zachney.
All right. I hope everyone has a great weekend. As always, can I tell you something I realized that I'd have to put it in the world because I have to not ever say it for real? Is I realized in a worse world, there's a world in which I genuinely say, fuck capitalism, go to the polls. And
can't do it.
I can't. It's so bad. And I can't because I know that electoral politics aren't the only important way in which to resist capitalism. You have to do other things. Mm-hmm. And one of those things is you have to say, fuck capitalism, go home.
Yeah, but you also can't lose one election
also,
and be like,
yeah,
I'm done with electoralism.
Yeah, exactly. Electoralism is, yes. We have to fight on every front, people.
It's a siege, not a battle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go see what's upstairs.
The white cheddar smart corn is.
What? Oh, I see it. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, get out of here, Rob.
What?
Wow, what a disappointing perspective that is.
What's
What?
that? Oh, yeah, you're not on the couch anymore.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you meant he tweeted something. I was like, what? What happened?
What-
What's going on?
Yeah,
right
I was
now?
like, oh man, what take did you just say?
Well, Rob, where to begin on that question?
Yeah, that's true.
Can't believe we're going to have another fucking breaking politics story of the day.
Wait, what's the breaking story?
Warren's dropping.
Warren shopping.
I realized the timing is really rough. I really was kind of hoping that like she would be able to time it so she could drop out after a debate where she just goes fangs out for
Yeah.
Biden.
Yeah.
But like
Otherwise, she would spend the whole debate being asked, "The fuck are you still doing here?" Which would be
Yeah.
just like humiliating. And for whatever your problems with her, she deserves better than that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also, I saw that Tulsi Gabbard qualifies for the debate because she got one delegate.
They're going to change those rules.
They kind of have to, right? They have to because fuck Tulsi.
It would be very
Because at this point,
funny.
it's nobody's going to raise their ire. No one's going to be like, well, it's unfair to Tulsi. I mean, yeah, they'll be them.
Yeah, of
the
course.
Intercept will be very upset.
Yeah.
But
God, get them. God. Fuck. Shouts to the
leftists, center right of the centrist of the Democratic Party, class hands. Fuck the Intercept.
Yeah, God. I will say that the Intercept podcast, Intercepted, has some good episodes.
They
It's
have some
probably-
good stuff. I mean,
wait.
it's mostly
Why is
just-
the Intercept bad?
I think it's less than
I don't like Glenn Greenwald.
I was gonna say, I
basically,
bet you it's less that-
I
yes.
think he's a fucking dirtbag that does some good things, but mostly is like a piece of shit. And so he taints everything beneath him, even though you're right, Rob, there are really good writers and
there are some
reporters
really good writers
that
at the
do
Intercept,
good work
man.
there. It's mostly
So
just
I've seen some things that suggest like there are people who work at the Intercept who do not like how heavily
Yes.
associated the site
that
is with
makes
Glenn.
sense. That would make a lot of sense.
As people who've worked at media companies throughout our lives,
Uh-huh.
and who sometimes don't like the associations that come therein, you gotta fucking have your platform. I don't know. All right. Time dot is. Time dot is warns us that it is daylight savings time this weekend.
Hell yeah.
Get ready to leap ahead.
Love to get an hour of my weekend stolen.
just boom, gone
No.
Fucking
They put it on the
love to
weekend.
Love it to have not be
on a
dark
work day.
at 4 p.m.
Also,
Yeah,
I'll take it
Good.
on a weekend over a work day. Not that I have like a distinction at this point, as I work
Right.
every day, but also don't work it's
Yeah.
anyway. We should do 37.
Let's do it again. Mine skipped.
Yep, 42. It's quicker. That was a 2-second lead, and we got it.
I was like, damn, that's
doing the
I'm
hurry
not sure we
up.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't know if we can do it any faster than that.
That was. What's the athletic article on that? On the podcast hurry up clap. And the efficiency rating therein. All right.
The oral history of the podcast hurry up clap.
God. No, that is now a Deadspin article. Like literally. Could imagine. God. Rip.
Somehow they'll be mad about Bill Simmons in there
Yes.
somewhere.
Yes.